Alexander Wrights here with another video. Today we're going to be talking about 5 writing tips. These are 5 things that I use and 5 things that I would recommend for anyone who's looking to write a novel for the first time. So tip number 1, and these are going to be very quick. This is kind of just helpful for you. But I guess really quickly before I even go into my tips, biggest question is like, why should you be listening to me? Are you a successful author? And I wouldn't say I am. I would say I've written books, but I wouldn't say that I haven't been able to measure success in a commercial sense that most people would. But what I would say is I have gotten a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment out of writing books, and whether that is just the community or my family around me who reads them, or it's people from across the world, that's whatever it is. I'm in love with the process. I'm in love with the end result. As far as being well known or famous, I don't think that's really what I aspire to be. But it is something that, if it was on the table, it's a really long-term goal to have something that is published from a traditional publisher. Anyways, my 5 tips. So my first tip for anyone who wants to write a novel is to get familiar with novel writing resources. This is one I use quite often. It is from the Reader's Digest. Yes, so the editors of the Writer's Digest, sorry, 2 different ones. But anyways, I use this, and it has quite a bunch of different topics in here. I won't go through them, but I recommend this book. I saw it on another author's page, and I picked it up, and I have read it. Also, they have these on Amazon. You can buy them in ebook and physical copy. The Thesaurus, the Writer's Thesaurus series, this is one of the occupation thesauruses. Essentially, if you're trying to create a character or an emotion or just a feeling, a setting, this is where you'll want to look. They have ones for setting, plot, emotion. There's like 8 of them. I'll put a link in the description. You need to check them out. They have a website basically that links together other writers to help each other. There's seminars, there's more resources. This is honestly the best thing. Like funeral director, you're writing a story and you have a funeral director as a character. This tells you an overview, what kind of training that person would need, useful skills, talents, and abilities, character traits, and then sources of friction for that character. So like friction is what drives the story. So we need to have a character who has some internal conflict. So this is just a place for you to brainstorm. The awesome thing about writing is it doesn't have to just come from your head. You can use resources, the world around you, your personal experiences to influence your writing. So this is a great place to start. So 1, get familiar with writing resource books. 2, I would say read. Read as many books as you can. If you see behind me, not the exercise bike, but behind me, I have a whole bookshelf and more here, and I'm just constantly buying books because I read a lot. And I think the first time I wrote a book, I had just gotten back into reading, so I didn't quite understand how to write because I hadn't been reading a lot of books. And over the last 4 or 5 years, I set a goal at least 20 to 25 books a year to read. And that is from any genre, historical fiction, mystery, romance, fantasy, sci-fi, whatever I can get my hands on. The more you read broadly, the better your writing will be. And I've seen just in my own experience that I got into historical fiction pretty intensely after reading The Nightingale, and I have like a whole shelf just completely devoted to it right there. And I have just fallen in love with that genre, and I'm really the amount of preparation, responsibility to working with something that exists but also is something that's purely fictitious is very interesting to learn and to jump into. So if you have a time period you're very fascinated with, but you want to have your own story within that time frame, it's great because I think the author of Outlander said hers are set in an actual timeline, but she didn't have to worry about what would happen next because she could just go to history and know what event would happen next, and then she could just put her characters in that moment. And that's a very, very smart thing. This book is Ruth Ware's newest book, by the way. I would read it. As a person who is trying to break more into the mystery genre, the Agatha Christie style, Ruth Ware, Lucy Foley, Riley Sager, there's just so many people who are doing it so well. And if you can read what they're doing and figure out how they're doing it, you will infinitely be better, especially with a complex plot like a murder. You need to know what's going to happen, and you need to know it fairly well. So tip 2, read a lot of books. And then for my third tip, it is draft. So one of the things I struggle with is when you watch a movie and it's a person who has to write a book. They write a book, the end, that's it. Turn it into an editor. It's a bestseller. It's just not how it happens. I thought that it happened that way, and I was very quickly humbled. Write drafts. This is the first draft of my first ever book. And I scrapped this whole thing. It was trash. Like, it was me telling the story to myself, but I could tell this is a jumping off point. And then I revised it into a second draft, and I trashed that. And I did a third draft and a fourth draft and a fifth draft. Then I got, a sixth draft, which became, the first time I had printed an actual book. And then I finally got to a place where it was the final draft, which is what I ended up self-publishing on Amazon. So all in all, I was in it several drafts, but each draft got infinitely better. And I think one of the issues that people run into as a new-time author is that when they write a draft, they stop there and they don't know where to go. And there is a lot more to drafting than grammatical error or grammatical spelling, whatever. There's structural, plot, and that brings me to a really quick thing. One second. This would go in that same category. So if you want something that's going to help you draft a book properly, read this book. This book has all the basic story beats for all the different genres. There's mystery. There's here, let me pull them up. I've read this a couple of times. So there's Buddy Cop, Triumphant Love, Out of the Bottle, Golden Fleece, Monster in the House, Pitch It to Me, Rites of Passage, Who Done It, which is what I like to write, Superhero, Do With a Problem. Any movie you've ever watched follows this format. And for people who enjoy reading or watching movies, reading a book that plays very similarly is an easy sell for them. It's an easy way to go from one medium to the next. So I would recommend reading this. She has another book that is going to be coming out soon that's more niche to a specific genre. I forget which one it is. Her name is Jessica Brody. Yeah, Jessica Brody. Originally, someone wrote this book, but it was for screenplays. She translated it into novels. So that's what I would recommend. Tip 3, draft a lot of books. And then for my fourth tip is, and I guess this is kind of tip 4 and 4.5. Get a machine that you want to use. This is a free write. I've done videos on this. It is a controversial device. I love it. I'm almost finished with my draft right now, the one I'm currently working on, because of this device. Get a device that is going to help you succeed, whether that's a MacBook, Chromebook, free write, whatever you want. You need to have a device that you're going to look at as this being your primary way you're going to write. When I look at this device, I know that I'm not going to be searching in social media. I'm not going to be looking through the internet. I'm just going to be writing. This is a device for writing, and it could be a typewriter. Typewriters are awesome. Like, it could be a notebook, a pen, whatever works best for you. Get a system, write consistently, and make sure you stick to it. Personally, I write 1,000 words a day, excluding weekends. So that's 5,000 words a week 4 weeks in a month, that's 20,000 times 4 months. We're already at 80,000. So you can get 2 books a year realistically if you really trained and kept to a routine. If you want to increase word count, or if you want to go over, or if you miss a day and make it up, that's fine. Just get a device and stick to a routine. I have been several times where I don't want to write and I just push through it. And some people say you shouldn't push through bad words, but I'd rather have bad words on a page than no words at all. That whole looking at the blank page and not knowing where it goes, you know where the story goes. If you're a plotter, a pantser, whatever you decide you are, you just have to move forward. You can always edit, you can always go back, and you can always redo things later, but you can't edit nothing. So get a device that works and stick with a routine. And then for my final tip, my 5th and final tip is research. So this is my research book for the Highland Tour, which is my 3rd book that I am working on currently. And I have all of my research in this little notebook. Now, I have bought reference books. I have internet tabs on my computer. I have historical books that I've bought about Scotland. I've actually visited the place that I'm writing my book at, so I know what it's like, and there's a sense of realism because I've lived there. I wrote a book, my previous one, in Victorian London. I had never been to London. I just went to London a couple weeks ago, so now I kind of could get a feel of what it's like. Whereas this book, I went there first, and now I have a working knowledge. So research your book. Like, I have several different, questions, and I carry this wherever I go. That's it. What's important is you need to carry some kind of notebook or some kind of place where you organize your story ideas, because I am out and about thinking about things and something really cool comes up and I write it in here immediately because I will forget about it. And I have gone back to this, and some of the ideas in this never go on the page. Some of them go on the page and they get removed. But to have a place where you can keep all of your thoughts in one location, so when you are at a roadblock or you do hit a spot where you don't know where to go, you can refer to this and be like, that's right, that character has a background in X, Y, and Z. I typically, I'll do character sheets. So I have a character sheet for each of the people who are in my book. Kinds of gives me what their name is, what their age is, what they look like, what they're interested in, what's their occupation, which is why that occupation thesaurus is a fantastic resource. And in the back, I use it for even tracker. So I have a tracker of like how many words, if I'm meeting my writing word daily goal, I'll track it in here. I have timelines. I have just random things. I have layouts for the hotel, so I know who's in which room. Because when you're writing, you're like, oh, this person is staying next to this person. And then later in the book, you forget. You start to run circles around yourself and create plot holes. So I've written maps, and goes just back to doing your research. Doing your research. The more research you do, the more authentic your story will feel. My book is set in 2014. So this is before a hotel that's in the Highlands was renovated. So this is early before it switched ownership. So there's a dimension where there's uncertainty. It's not popular. It is now, but it wasn't then. There is construction going on. So it adds a very interesting dimension, which in turn, I had to find all that information through looking at news articles from 2014, looking through their archived Twitter account to see what the hotel looked like prior to renovation. And I have it detailed in here. So ultimately, this is what I take with me when I write. It's this puppy, and it is this. They go with me when I write because I only need these 2 things. I don't need a phone unless I want some pretty good music to listen to. But I only need these 2 things. If I can't figure something out, I will pose a question in my journal and I'll search it on the internet later. I don't typically like to write with the internet because I will distract myself, and that's the whole point of writing, is to not distract yourself, to remain focused. So research. So if I'm remembering myself correctly, tip 1 is get reference books to writing. How to be a better writer. You can learn by educating yourself. You don't have to get a degree. You don't have to go to online courses, but they're helpful. There's plenty of free ones. I'll link some in the bio. They do them all the time. Webinars, you can ask questions. It's awesome. These things exist. You don't have to pay for them. They're free. I'm pretty cheap when it comes to that kind of stuff, so I found them. Tip 2 is read widely. Read all genres by all people. Read New York Times bestsellers. Read local authors. Read the people who've written books in your community. See what they're doing. See what works for them. And just try to figure out why these authors have such a following. You will start to look and find clues, and then it will slowly start to be incorporated into your writing. And then you'll have a story that is compelling, addictive, and grabs people's attention. 3 is draft. So 3, draft. Draft multiple times, many times. Have people read your drafts. Throw drafts out if they're not good. Don't be afraid to start over. There's no such thing as a bad work, but there is, if you can prevent yourself from putting something that you don't want out there with a draft, then do that. Betas, alphas, your best friend, your wife, ask someone to read it. Tell me honest opinion. As writers, we expose ourselves, and it sucks to be vulnerable, but if we want to get better, we have to draft and take criticism. And then 4 is get a writing device that you like, one that's going to inspire you to write, one that's going to invite questions, one that's going to show other people, like, I'm a writer, I'm taking this seriously. This isn't just I'm going to write a novel and then it never happens. No, you're going to be serious about it and you're going to do it. And create a routine. If it's 1,000 words in the morning, 1,000 words at night, if it's 500 words a day, whatever you want to do, just stick to a routine. Build habits. Atomic Habits is a great book. Micro habits. Do small things to help you implement being a writer into your identity. You need to remember, when you are a writer, you have to remind yourself that you are, because, it's a lonely profession. You can't measure success with being a writer. Even if you are famous, you're only as good as your best book or your last book. So if you don't write something that's good, doesn't mean you're not bad. Just doesn't mean that the people particularly wanted what you wrote, and you have to learn from that. And then step 5, create a reference book. Create a place where you can store all of your ideas for that one project and carry it with you wherever you go. Get people who know things, interview them, do research, look at the weather. These are all things that we don't think about when we first write a story, but I can tell you, when you write a book that has been well researched and well thought out, it was because they sat and posed question after question and really got to it. So those are my 5 tips. Now, like I said, I'm not these amazing author, bestseller, whatever you want to call it, but I love this craft. I think it's amazing. It is something that I feel blessed as a gift to have. And if I can help you, the aspiring author or the person who doesn't know where to begin, to just pick up a page or to just type a word, that is powerful. That is something that can change lives. It can inspire. And I hope that these 5 tips, if there's at least one of them, that would be awesome. If you found them helpful, or if these are ones that you're doing, or if there's something you would recommend, leave a comment as well. Thumbs up the video, like and subscribe. I am all about writing, all about reading, all about pens, paper, anything that revolves around the craft. I post as much as possible, and I do it because I really enjoy it and I really feel a passion to share it with others. Thank you so much and have a great day.